we're back with another camera mount test and an update because the car's running much better than it was. I took it to Ford last week and had both the airbags replaced. So claps and cheers, no more postcards and warning letters for the recall. And I also connected the water meth back up again, and I picked up some heat from Walmart and added it to some -20 from Walmart as well, -20 windshield washer fluid. And that's working as well, so no bad solenoid. First gear is kind of useless in this car. It's 3.35 to 1, I think. Trimming 3650 out of the Mustang GT. I would really like a 266, but I'll be lucky if I end up with the, I don't know what it is, 290 something. Okay, second gear. The other thing that I did when I took the car into Ford, I had a coolant flush because I've had the car for 13 years and it's never had any maintenance like that. And I also had the fuel filter changed, and that may have made a difference in the way that the car feels. I'm not sure. There's me silent and holding my breath and making sure that there's no clumps around, but I figured if the Camaro could do it, I could. So that was like second gear, hit probably about 40 and then blew the tires off. Now it's time to find out if the camera mounts in here. Oh, you know what? One thing we'll do here before I shut the car off, because I didn't do it the last time I took a video, is we'll check the peak boost. Alright, so I hit 12.5 pounds boost. And another thing that I haven't done actually since I've got all this work done, and I apologize for the noisy transmission, it's the pilot bearing. It's been like that since day one because it's an adapter to a GT transmission. One hand. A little bit of a look around. I don't know how good you're going to be able to see that because the sun is like glaring. Put up the before picture from when I got the car back from New York after sitting for 7+ years. I really need a 6-speed transmission. Oh yeah, I forgot to turn the AC off. I wonder what that would have done. I don't think I really lose that much power with it. Alright, so I've been promising an update on the last 6 months for a while, and I do apologize for the delay, but I've been busy doing other things. I'll give you a tour of the house to show you that, but this is a car thing, not a house thing. So, as you know, I took the car into a place called Rod's Customs, and the person that I actually was dealing with, turns out that they were renting a bay in the shop. They weren't actually a part of Rod's, even though they were trying to pass themselves off as that, unknown to the owner. So, unfortunately, I had problems eventually with both of them, and stemming from the issues with Shane, the guy that was supposed to be doing work on the car. So he was supposed to install a oil filter relocation, an oil cooler, relocate my scavenge pump from one side of the car to the other, and it was sitting over on the passenger side closer to where the turbo's mounted, and I had him move it over to the driver's side. I think you might be able to see a little bit of it down there. So anyway, when it took almost 4 months for him to do a job that should have taken about 3 or 4 days, including part of the my request was for him to either rebuild my existing turbo or to replace it. And I was supposed to get either a Turbonetics or a Garrett replacement. And I wanted it spec'd to get, I guess, equivalent to a stage 5, which is pretty much the maximum you can do to a T3, T4 hybrid. So it's a 60 trim compressor and a 63 AR turbine, but of course it would have been bored out, to house a lot bigger wheels on both sides. And I do have the specifications for the turbo that's in the car now, which was rebuilt by Turbo Bay, and it's got probably about a 650 horsepower headroom. And that's more than this motor can handle. So, because even built these 4.0s, even though they're really good engines, they can't handle much more than, I'd say, 550 horsepower, and even then you're on borrowed time. So right now I'm running around, I say 414, 480, but that's the numbers from the last dyno, and the torque, as I'm being generous, it was maybe 477 or 478. And that was 12, it peaked at 12.8, but I think it was, that was a spike, a boost spike. I'm guessing that it's running at around 12.5, and today when I ran the car, it peaked at 12.4, so it's close enough. Anyway, let's get into the Rod's Customs bullshit. So, when I went to pick up the car, and I'm obviously going to be overlaying pictures, it just isn't going to be a still or a wander around of me showing you the engine bay. So this is a new feed line to the turbo, and I had to replace it because when I went to pick the car up, it was crimped in 3 places. And I actually refused to pick the car up that day because at the same time the bumper cover was hanging off of the car, bulging out in a couple of different areas, because Shane had relocated my horn but didn't test fit and just forced the bumper cover back onto the car and used zip ties to attach it, because he either broke the mounting brackets, well, he did break the mounting brackets, so he just used zip ties to put the bumper cover back on. It was fantastic workmanship. Another thing is all the feed line, or the drain, just the drain line was supposed to be replaced with dash 10. And when I inspected that, it ended up being dash 12, and I'm going to slip underneath the car. I got some pictures of when I redid this that I'll probably overlay. But that's it right there. That's the new line. That's a dash 10 line. And then I left the original dash 8 because there's enough pressure produced by the this Exa pump. It's a TurboWorks. That it'll force the oil out. But I wanted the big end here just because the oil consistency coming out of the turbo is like a milkshake. So bigger the better, so that it can get to where it needs to go, which is the pump. So I also found the pump hanging off of 2 bolts, and it was installed upside down. So I had to correct that part as well. And the downpipe, which was the worst part of this whole thing, because it actually led to him catching the car on fire. Jose, the owner of Rod's Customs, actually designed the downpipe without having the oil filter relocation setup in place, which means there was no, there was nothing to guide them as far as how the pipe needed to be run. So to fix that, he bashed the pipe in with a hammer. And even with that, it was still pinned up against the two lines that were coming out of the relocation fitting. And I think it oil soaked some wrap that he had put on the downpipe, and instead of removing and replacing that wrap, he ran the car like that and it caught on fire. Either that or he blew one of the lines, most likely the feed line, because I did find a broken fan belt in the trunk. Now, why you would cover up an engine fire and try to detail and get rid of all the oil, of course he never did that properly, and yet leave the broken fan belt in the back is beyond me. Those were the kind of the major problems. Of course, the fire also caused additional damage. You can see still some scorching, and if you look real close, I don't know if that's going to show up, it melted my oil catch pan, which is just a water separator. I did buy a new oil catch, but it doesn't fit in there, so not without a lot of modifications, and I just didn't want the car down for something like that again. It's been down for long enough. Alright, so the other problem was after the downpipe was created and they rehung the exhaust, they hung it almost 2 inches lower than it was when I brought them the car. Now, if you think about that, the car runs K-springs, or K-springs in the rear. I've got Roush, they're 1/2-inch drop springs in the front now, and the nice thing about them is they drop the fender well almost as much as the K-spring, but they don't drop the K-member. So I don't have to have boards under the tires to get the car jacked back up again. And I still actually have the same wheel gap stance as I did with the K-springs, and the rear is still the Ford Racing K. So, and it seems to handle pretty good too. I think the struts are just about time to replace them. But okay, what else? Oh yeah, the axle back, and this is where, you know, Rod's Customs itself comes in, because he's the one that did the exhaust work. Shane didn't have experience in welding, I guess, so he had to outsource it, and it happened to be the owner of Rod's Customs that did the work. Well, it turns out that he not only welded the axle back to my over axle pipes, but he also welded one of the exhaust brackets to the frame rail of the car, and he welded the Roush tips onto the exhaust and onto the mufflers. That's not how you install these things. And I know some people might choose to do that, but you'd only do something like that if your customer actually asked you to. And I did not ask him to. And I don't know what the deal was with, you know, welding the fucking hanger to the frame rail, the mounting bracket, stainless steel mounting bracket for the exhaust is, what, $49? I think that might be high. They might only be $25. I know I bought one. I just don't remember what the price was. The pipes ones. So anyway, that's the deal. And then I ended up taking it to Charlotte Harbor exhaust to have the exhaust portion of it redone. They redid the downpipe for me. They actually welded on, at my request, they welded on another flange, turbo flange, to the existing one that's there, to have spaced the turbo over 1/2 inch. So they also lifted the exhaust probably about maybe 1.5 inches, and they put in new straight pipes. They didn't do the greatest job in the world on this, and they are actually going to redo it. And of course, they also don't have stainless steel, and they don't TIG weld. But I should be able to clean some of that stuff up. But it looks okay. It doesn't really sound that great. I think it's the 3-inch mid pipes, and I'm gonna do something about that. I'm either gonna put resonators in there, or I'm gonna put 2.5-inch mid pipes in to cut down that real bad rasp. And I'm on the lookout for a used Mac Pro chamber to replace the hollowed cats that I had on the car originally. The stock cats were hollowed, and then the turbo piping came after that. And I had dual 2.5-inch mid pipes on the same side going down and out to dual 3 inches. That is when the car sounded its best. And I'll put a quick shot of that, a piece of that video into this one right now, in fact. That's where I want to get back to, anyway. So that's the update. What have I done? Obviously, I've put covers on it. I cleaned the engine bay. I detailed the shit out of it because there was oil in almost every orifice. I cleaned up the intake configuration. It used to be tucked in behind the driver's side headlight, and I didn't want it like that anymore. And eventually I'll fabricate a like an airbox isolator, just a simple one. And I did put in a new pipe. I actually had the shop, Charlotte Harbor actually had this sent out and had a bung welded there so that I could plumb the breather on this side into the intake like it is when it's stock, because the car was acting a little bit weird with it being open to atmosphere, so I'm hoping that that's going to be an improvement. What else? I painted the strut tower brace. I mean, there's nothing really performance-wise. Just getting that meth verified that it works, and you know, making sure that there was no other damage done to the car electrically because of that fire. Was all that I really wanted to do, because I know he replaced the crank sensor. I think it melted in the fire. And I also had to, if you look, the water meth line, there's a white piece in there. I actually had to add that section because it was melted by the fire, so it was leaking. Anyway, I think I'm done blabbing. So, and I think I only have one anyway in there. All right, that's it. Fuck y'all.